Hey y'all, it's Marjorie from A Pinch of Healthy blog, and on this episode of Food for Thought Friday, we are going to be discussing mind-body disconnection. Do you have mind-body disconnect? If you do, here might be some of the things you experience. Maybe you say things like, my full button is broken, or maybe you rely on things like trackers and food scales to tell you how much to eat. If you feel out of control around food and certain foods, you cannot have them in your house. If your eating is subject to a bunch of rules and control mechanisms and things like dining out give you massive anxiety, you might have mind-body disconnect. So today we're going to talk about that brain-body disconnect. We're going to talk about what it is, how it manifests, and what causes it. So humans are complex beings with many aspects, and I love how holistic medicine calls this a mind, body, spirit complex. I just want to give one quick disclaimer. I love holistic medicine, how it talks about like being unified in your being. Some interpretations of holistic medicine give messages like, if you have cancer, then it's because you had some bad thoughts or something like that. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm talking about is unifying your being and for your mind and body to work together. Our bodies, minds, and spirits are designed to work in unison, with all aspects of ourselves having this symbiotic type relationship with one another. And sometimes this relationship can get severed. Physical trauma or abuse can trigger that, where it's too painful to be in your body, and so you kind of disassociate from us to help yourself sort of survive something traumatic like abuse or something like that. The other way it can happen is if you pursue intentional weight loss through exercise or food restriction, or as we call it, dieting. Now, our bodies do not value thinness as a virtue. Based on a lot of evidence that the thin ideal appears to be more of a cultural construct than an actual like health thing. And if you want to see more on that, I'm going to refer you to my Untangling Weight and Health video where I delve into some of that research. We are going to get into just part of the reason why it's unhelpful to pursue intentional weight loss. When our mind decides that the body is a problem and that the body is wrong somehow, and we begin to like act with intention to change it through our food restriction or through exercise, it can cause just a whole bunch of issues. And the first one, you can start to lose touch with your innate hunger and fullness cues. We often just ignore them in favor of meal plans or a set of instructions that are given to us with the promise that it's going to change our bodies. And what that inadvertently causes is you to like lose connection with that and even what that feels like. And I know for me, at first when I started trying to eat intuitively, I didn't realize I was hungry until it was like way like famished type hungry. As I began to practice, I would notice what it felt like more subtly, like as I was getting there, as my body was starting to become hungry. And it takes practice, but that's something that dieting does, is disconnects that. We try to override our body with our mind, and that is a fragmentation process. And it's essentially declaring war on yourself. And what happens is, so your mind wants to be thin. The body doesn't value thinness, it values keeping you alive. And so basically you have two aspects of you with different intentions, different objectives, and they're at war with each other. They're at conflict with each other. And so some of the things that start to happen at first is your body signals will get louder. your hormones that control hunger and fullness will start to reorganize to make you hungrier and less full, so that you will eat more. This is your body saying, well, obviously she's not eating enough because we're losing weight, so we need to try and restore weight, so we're going to make her hungrier. And what happens is, usually if you continue that restriction, you're going to have an impulsive break and binge at some point. And a lot of people blame themselves and think that it's just a lack of control or something like that, and will just kind of beat up on themselves. What that actually is a biological mechanism. It's kind of this rebound effect of restriction, nothing more. It's just a biological response to restriction. It's your body trying to get you to maintain your weight. If you are strong-willed and you're able to override these increased hunger signals from your body with your mind, your body will enact other physiological interventions. And we saw this with the Biggest Loser controversy. What happens is your body will essentially slow down your metabolism so that you are expending fewer calories. So with the Biggest Loser thing, I can link that below. What happened was, it looked at contestants after the show was over. Just like what happens with so many of us, they gained their weight back. And the show, the study actually did some metabolic testing on them, and it found that when they compared how they were after the show, after they had lost and regained this weight, they were burning 500 to 800 calories fewer than before they ever did the show. And that's heartbreaking to me. It's just totally, your body just undermines your mental goals, and it just shows how the body and mind are not meant to be at conflict with one another. Another way your body will undermine you is it'll start to kind of give you this preoccupation with food. Food will start to have more of an emotional pull for you. Like I said, it's enacting all these mechanisms, all these interventions to try and get you to restore weight. Your body, it's been shown that your body views dieting and weight loss as a famine. And so it's really just trying to keep you alive. As everything kind of ramps up, as your body and your mind just kind of get even more on opposite poles of each other, there's more polarity, it just gets very frustrating, very confusing. It's not a good place to be. You feel really conflicted and frustrated. And a lot of people hear the stat that I mentioned in the previous video about 95% of dieters regain the weight, and 2/3 of them regain more than what they started with. I even had a commenter say, I refuse to be in the 95%. Well, what I want to illustrate with this point is that it doesn't matter if you're perfectly restricting sometimes. If you're perfectly restricting according to the diet plan, oftentimes your body can override that. Your body will slow down to the point that you're either not losing or you're actually gaining weight, even though you're sticking to the diet plan. And what happens is people will blame themselves, say they, can't stick to it, it's not working, but it's really just your body trying to rescue you. So when your mind is at war with your body and everything's getting more oppositional to one another, it just gets further and further and further apart. It starts to be really consuming. It starts to take up a ton of your time. And I've seen one person, a quote somewhere, saying, like, you give up 90% of your life to weigh 10% less. And that is so true. I think the answer to all this is reintegrating your body and your mind and bringing them back together for a common goal. And for that, you kind of, I believe, and based on the research I've seen, you kind of have to let go of the number and just focus on getting behaviors that care for yourself in a very nurturing way. And I think there's a misconception. I think a lot of people think that intuitive eating is just giving up on yourself or just eating whatever the heck you feel like, just like sitting on the couch all day and eating potato chips. And that's not what intuitive eating is at all. True intuitive eating is just normal eating. It's what our ancestors did. It's what our great-grandparents did. Nobody tracked. Nobody had gym memberships. And there was no, quote, obesity epidemic. I don't have any proof for this, but it's just a thought of mine that perhaps all of this dieting is actually at least partially to blame for this whole obesity epidemic. And how tragic is that if it were actually true? Intuitive eating is literally just the practice of tuning into your body, figuring out what sounds good, using your mind to bring in some gentle nutrition, and just getting on with your life, just not focusing on it too much, letting food serve you. You're not subject to it. It just kind of flips things around when you get really disordered about it. And it can cause this flip where food has way too much power. And so when you flip it back around, you just start to see huge shifts happen. And I know this definitely happened for me. It kind of takes courage to step out of this because your weight, you don't really know exactly what it's going to do. And there is a theory called weight set point theory, which believes that your body wants to be at a certain weight. It may be in flux over your lifetime. And we know that certain biological milestones cause changes in weight, such as puberty, pregnancy, and menopause for women, especially, or only. Obviously, men don't have pregnancy or menopause. These milestones often come with weight gain, and a lot of women are really hard on themselves about it, but it's kind of a necessity for hormonal function, and it's actually your body trying to protect you. It's just that our bodies don't really value thinness. It just wants to be at what your set point is, and that's affected a lot by your genetics, your environment, and your season of life. And if you kind of fight against that set point, you just kind of set yourself up for massive conflict and just kind of chasing your tail. It's kind of countercultural to not be trying to reduce your weight. And that sounds so backwards. If you had told that to our great-great-great-grandparents, they'd be like, what the heck are you even talking about? I think that eating intuitively will be the wave of the future. I think we'll kind of return to our roots and kind of drop all this whole dieting thing. Really, when it comes down to it, the only factions that it serves are the pharmaceutical industry and the diet industrial complex. Basically, people who stand to gain from us pursuing weight loss, buying programs and hiring people to help us figure out how to drop this weight. I think that's really who has the most to gain from all of this. But when you work in harmony with yourself, when you do that and like reintegrate yourself, the shifts are profound. It's a big reason why I'm even still doing these intuitive eating videos. It just has allowed me personally to kind of like reclaim my sovereignty over what I eat and how I live my life and how I spend my time. And it's allowed me to like stop giving my power away and looking to all these different places to tell me how to eat. I know how to eat. I know how to feed myself. I know that vegetables are good for me. I know that my body will tell me when I've been sitting too long and it's time to get up and get some exercise. The blessings from living this way and becoming reintegrated are just really profound and life-changing, and I think everyone deserves it no matter what weight you're at. I think you deserve to be a normal eater and just get on with your life. And when you do that, a lot of these dysfunctional behaviors actually will kind of correct themselves. If you can kind of unwind a lot of the unhelpful diet programming that's in your mind. And that can be a little bit complicated. But once you do that, you kind of set yourself free. And when you're free to choose, usually you're going to choose foods and things that make you feel really good, for the most part, and you're gonna choose behaviors that make you feel good. And that's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be a fully unified being. And I hope this video has given y'all something to think about. I hope that I made sense. If you have any questions about intuitive eating or weight set point theory or health at every size, just leave me a comment below. And if I don't know the answer, hopefully I can find it out for you. All right, that wraps up another Food for Thought Friday, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye.